Welcome to episode 11 of On the Mark with Arpit with Mark Seagraves and me, Arpit Sharma. As usual, we're going to talk about some football. We're going to look back at football on the weekend, the Premier League, some big score lines in that one. And then we're going to move on to the Bundesliga because of what Bayern Leverkusen have done and what Bayern Munich have not done. And then we'll end with a little bit of La Liga as well. Mark Seagraves, a very warm welcome to you as always. Let's start off. There have been some big score lines on the weekend, like I mentioned. Liverpool, City, Arsenal, Newcastle, Chelsea, all scoring a lot of goals. So we'll start with your beloved club, Manchester United. Liverpool. Liverpool versus Tottenham. 6 goals in that one, Mark. Delighted with what you saw?
Yes and no. Delighted that they went 4-0 up. But again, defensively, they allowed Tottenham to come back into the game to a certain extent. And you know what? I was watching it and I'm thinking, please not get a second, and then they get a second, and then they have an opportunity for a third. And I'm just thinking, my goodness, the arse is going to come out of Liverpool now because, they've done all the hard work, and then all of a sudden, but it was a good result. It keeps them in the hunt, doesn't it?
There's no hunt, Mark. I mean, that's you being over-optimistic and people still trying to make it sound like there's a little bit of a race for the title for Liverpool. I don't think the race is run, but they scored 4 goals. So we'll come to the 2 goals conceded a little later on. 4 goals conceded. And I think there is a factor that, as fans, sometimes we omit that once you're 4 goals up, I know you'd want them to be, still the same, but you pull off a little bit of that intensity because you're like, this is done and dusted. I don't want to overdo anything. I don't want to go into tackles and hurt myself, right?
But what have they got after this? They've only got another game. It's not like they've got a cup final. It's not like So okay, yeah. But if you as a player think like that, the one thing that's going to happen to you, guaranteed, is you get injured, because your mind's not on the job, is it? If you're going in for a tackle, this is why they say, if you go into a full-blooded tackle, 50%, you'll probably break your leg or break your ankle because you're not fully into it. So I don't go with that argument. That argument's Liverpool have got nothing to play for other than the Premier League, if you like, right now.
Okay. At least they won this time around. At least they put the chances away, and Salah scored a goal as well. He could have had a couple of goals in that one, but just overall, the smiles were back. He scored. You saw him looking happy. Jurgen Klopp celebrating as well. You feel like that incident is behind them?
Well, it is, because he got his way, didn't he? He started the game, and I said, I mean, you were right by saying, why don't they drop him? They dropped him. Then we had this nonsense at the end of the game. They put him back in, and lo and behold, he goes and scores. But we're talking about Salah. We've got to talk about his goal-scoring prowess, but also the miss that he had
of the season. I was just thinking, if there was a Puskas Award for miss of the season,
that's got to go to him. Yeah, I mean,
I think everyone was stunned.
He did everything wrong. He went with his wrong foot. He didn't even kick the ball. I mean, for someone who's such a gifted goal scorer, that was unbelievable.
But I think everyone just stopped, including Salah. I think what happened was everyone stopped and said, this is not possible. The ball can't fall so kindly.
But did you see the Tottenham Hotspur defenders? They were all like,
he went and said, honestly, it looked like someone had just pressed pause on everyone, and then Salah in slow motion just took his right foot out. Yeah,
do you know what it was like, Arpit? It was like it would have been like me playing on the PS, whatever it is. I would have miskicked it on that, but and also you got to mention Harvey Elliott's goal was fantastic.
What a stunner.
Yeah. I mean, it was a good result. Performance-wise, okay, up to a point. Be disappointed with the 2 goals conceded, but no one will remember that next week, will they?
Okay, so you're talking about the 2 goals conceded. The first half, if I remember correctly, I think Liverpool had 14 shots and Tottenham had 1. Just that first half performance. And this is Tottenham. Tottenham, a team that we said would, be a potential speed breaker for all the champions and people looking for top spot and whatnot. This is Tottenham. First half, 14 shots, commanding the game. Tottenham had some possession, but just 1 shot. How good were Liverpool in that first half?
Yeah, they were okay, Liverpool, but Tottenham were absolutely abject. They were shocking. Defensively, they were poor. The left back, Emerson Royale, is it? Emerson. He was awful. He did everything that could be wrong in a defensive player. He was going forward when he was not in the position to go forward. Then he was having to race back because Salah had the freedom of Anfield. So yes, Liverpool played really well, but they didn't have to play that well to do what they did, because Tottenham in the first half were not even the first half. Up until he made the substitution, till Richarlison came on, they were absolutely shocking. And to listen to one of the pundits, Glenn Hoddle, who used to be manager of Tottenham, used to play for Tottenham, he was scathing in his assessment of Spurs. So, it was a bit of both. Liverpool did well, but Tottenham was shocking on the day.
Okay, Tottenham, we have to talk about them. Like I said, everyone said they are the team that will affect the title race. What they've done in the last 4 Premier League games is they've lost all to Newcastle, Arsenal, Chelsea, and Liverpool. And they've not just lost, they've conceded 16 goals in those 4 games. And Postecoglou, and they've had a good time in between. You know, it's tough being a fan of any football club this season, as I would understand more than any other. But do we delve into those 4 losses a bit, or do we just say, well, it's the end of the season, they don't really have too much to play for?
They do have something to play for. They've got the Champions League to play for, which was their thing at the start of the season. I'm not, I don't think the hierarchy at Tottenham would have said, we want to win the league, we want to win the FA Cup. Their prime objective was to get into the Champions League. Now, whether they do or don't, that's up to conjecture. They're 7 points behind now. So, and if they're playing like this, you know what we said, Arpit? And I'm not one of these people that want to have a go at managers and whatnot. But he's come in, Postecoglou, with this huge reputation, and he was a breath of fresh air, and he was the guy that was going to ruffle the feathers of the top 3 or 4, and all of a sudden, he's gone from being a hero to zero. Now, whether that's the players or whether it's what because what I've heard that, I think it was Dyer, when he went to Bayern Munich, said, we don't do any training, we don't do any tactics, we don't do any of this. Now, I don't know whether he's one of these managers, old school, which will just go in, train 5-a-sides, and hope it works on a Saturday. I think they've gone beyond all of that, managers now, and they do a lot more of the tactical stuff. Of course they do. But the honeymoon is definitely over for him now, because, is Europa League, is that what they brought him in for? It isn't. They want top-level football, and, it's part of the remit when you go into Tottenham. And the owners in Tottenham are not, they're not scared to hire and fire you. So, yes, he'll get till next season, I'm sure, but I don't know where to start with them. I know Liverpool need an overhaul. Manchester United need an overhaul.
That's what I said. Every club, we were talking about Chelsea a couple of weeks ago, even though now they seem to have, said something correct. But Tottenham in a bit of dire straits, 4 matches, 16 goals conceded. We moved to City, 5-1 win over Wolves, Mark, and Haaland getting 4 goals in 54 minutes. They're title winners, aren't they?
Regulation, wasn't it? I know Wolves have got a lot of injuries as well, and they've played a lot of youngsters in recent times, and it's a difficult place to go. Haaland, I think he's got the bit between his teeth now. I think he mentioned something about Roy Keane again this week in
I think he said, I don't listen to that man.
And a League Two player. Now he's becoming the player that we thought he was before he was a League Two player. He's back in the goals, and it's ominous, isn't it? The way they play. I watch it, and sometimes I get bored because they're so dominant. And
no, you're right. I get bored watching City games because they just keep the ball. They just keep passing it between themselves. The opponents can't do anything. I don't know, as a City fan, if that is thrilling to watch. But the difference I see between Liverpool and City, which I at least have seen over the past 2 years, is when Liverpool have the ball, it's literally pedal to the metal and they go forward, usually. City, go forward, come back, go side, go forward, come back. They almost want to score a perfect goal. So, I do get a little bored watching them.
But when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, they do it, don't they? They got the players. They got the big players. They got De Bruyne, Silva. Now Foden's coming into it. You've got obviously Haaland, Grealish, even Doku. You've got in midfield Rodri. Then back to back, you've got experience. You've got experience throughout the whole of the squad. Now they've got 3 games left Who have they got left? Fulham, Spurs,
Tottenham
and
for
West Ham.
sure. Yeah.
Spurs have gone. Spurs are all over the place. West Ham have just been
West Ham
pumped
just got
5-0.
beat.
Yeah, and Fulham probably be the hardest game because it's away from home. And that's the game in hand that's going to put them hopefully above. So it's interesting. And it's interesting as you see, it's like a marathon. You know, when you see these runners, they get to the 18-mile mark and there's 3 or 4. And then the 19th mile marker, there's only 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And then someone just drops off as they go along. And I mean, I
just covered a race 2 weeks ago like that, and that's pretty much exactly how it happened.
So it was
that one goal that he scored, Mark. I want to talk about it because so much talk. Again, if people have not heard the exact Roy Keane quote, it was, when he's not scoring goals, then he looks like a League Two player when the build-up is going on. That was the quote. It wasn't about his goal scoring and wasn't about overall him being a League Two player. On that note, I want to talk about that goal where, the ball goes over the top. He controls it, cuts back onto his left foot, and then curls it into the corner. I mean, all of that encapsulates possibly he is a great player, isn't he?
Yeah, and it was a similar goal or similar type goal to Fulkrug that we've seen in the Champions League, where everything that they did within that process was first class, wasn't it? Perfect, it was absolutely brilliant. So, but we know that with these players, and what do they say? Class is permanent, isn't it? You'll have
form is temporary, class is permanent.
Yeah, you'll have a couple of games where you're not doing well, and the nature of our business, what we're doing now in media and different things, is to highlight and pick and look at the negatives. We very rarely look at the positives. When I was a football scout, Arpit, I used to go to games and I'd be writing things on players, what they can't do, what the team can't do. And I came back one day and said to the manager, all of the things that I'm telling you are all negatives. I said, I want to tell you what they can do, really, because that's what's going to be more important for us to counter. And it made it and it's the easiest thing in the world is to say, the keeper was out of there or the defender was a mistake. Not that the touch of the player made it such that they got the ball out of the feet and be able to curl it in. So, it's... But the goals that we're seeing now, the amount of goals that we're seeing now is unbelievable for such a stage in the competition, if you like,
Crazy the number of goals you've seen. Arsenal got 3 goals as well against Bournemouth that a lot of people thought would be, again, a potential banana.
It was a struggle for Arsenal. It was a real struggle. I watched the game.
Yeah, 3-0. Quite a struggle.
Yeah, but they scored at the right times. I mean,
that's what happened against Tottenham as well. That's what happened against Tottenham. Tottenham were playing well and Arsenal were just scoring. So again, we talk about that fact that, not winning beautifully. And this Arsenal team now seems to do it.
They did. I mean, and fair play, clean sheet as well. But it wasn't a game where they absolutely dominated defensively. They had opportunities. It was at Bournemouth, wasn't it? And they could have easily equalised when it was 1-0. But as I say, goals matter when they're scored, and Arsenal scored at the right times, and Trossard scored again, which was good for Arsenal.
Yeah, Declan Rice is also just coming up with assists and goals all the time for them, so he's repaying all of that money that they paid for him. Quickly, I want to talk about Newcastle, Mark. They've gone a little under the radar ever since United have been struggling, Chelsea have been struggling, Tottenham have been doing well. Newcastle, of course. There was that conversation, is he good enough? Is he not good enough? Now, in the last 2 games, they've scored 9 goals. They beat Burnley 4-1. Burnley is the team who went to Old Trafford last week and drew with Manchester United. And what I want to talk about is all this talk about United players having a lot of injuries. Newcastle have been decimated throughout the season, right? In this match as well, their back four is Lewis Hall, Dan Burn, Emil Krath, and Livramento. And he's had to struggle with injuries as well. How well has he done at Newcastle, especially with the goal scoring that they're doing?
He's done great. I mean, it's been an up and down season, hasn't it? And we've had situations during the season where people have questioned Eddie Howe and whether he'll still be there. And you've got to give the owners a little bit of credence here that they haven't panicked. They know what he can do. Now, whether sixth is it sixth? Yeah, sixth is good enough for them. I think for his first year in terms of with the money behind them and getting these players in. It's a hard place, Arpit, to get players to go to Newcastle. If you're not a big name
Harder than Old
manager,
Trafford, apparently. Oh, sorry, you
yeah,
meant as a player. Sorry, I thought you were
as a
talking about going.
player. So if I want to sign someone and Man United's in for you, or Chelsea's in for you, it's a very difficult place to go and sign players to go to Newcastle. It's a huge club, and with the backing that they have now financially, yes, the pressure's going to be on them next year. I mean, the Europa League this year is great for them. Next year, it's got to be Champions League. Otherwise, they'll find another manager to get them to where they want to get to.
Absolutely
but
crazy.
At the moment, they're doing great. And do you know what? If there was one club, apart from the clubs that I played at, that I would love to have played for, was Newcastle, because the fans are so fervent. The excitement at the games, it's electric. The atmosphere. And it's, if you do well there, you're going to be an idol forever, and it's a huge club, big club. And as I say, the fans are fanatical. So
I still remember when Alan Shearer used to play for them, and this is way back, and they were not doing too well in the league, but just the support, even as a neutral fan, I used to enjoy watching them play. Their players used to literally put in heart and soul. I think one draw with Tottenham, a high-scoring draw with not Tottenham, Arsenal, I think I remember it was, and it was so crazy to watch. Even the manager, just the way they would go crazy on St. James's Park, because it's actually fun to watch Newcastle, and they're doing well. Credit to them. One quick reaction on Chelsea scoring 5 goals. They suddenly found the target. They had 14 shots on target in this one, Mark.
It's not just 5; it's 9, I think, in 2 games as well. So they seem to have turned the corner, haven't they? Is it a little bit too late? Of course, it's a little bit too late, but it's one of these things in football where the expectation levels on you as a football club. So say, for instance, Chelsea were a little bit like Leverkusen, were 16th in the league, and Pochettino got them to 7th even. Then next year's, everyone's excited for next year. Now, it's been a bit of a damp squib for Chelsea this year, because they should have been higher than where they are. They should have been punching a lot more than where they have been. But to get themselves into 7th on the back end of these 2 games, I'd be excited as a Chelsea supporter. I think he seems to have got the right combination here. Now they're scoring goals, they're keeping clean sheets. Wow,
we should get a Chelsea fan. We've had this conversation, haven't we? We should get a Chelsea fan for all that they've endured and now what they must be experiencing with these goals scored, and the likes of Nicholas Jackson adjusting their radars so that they don't miss sitters.
But did you see the goal that Jackson scored from, is it Madrid, the guy on the right hand side? It shows you there's harmony within the club, because he could have easily tried to score the goal and he just put it to the side, and it was an easy goal for Jackson. So I think he seems to have got the players on board again. I mean, they've got 2 games to go. Let's see what happens in them 2 games. They're not going to get anywhere near the Champions League.
He's also had a tough time with some of the purchases that were really beyond what should have been paid and have not delivered in terms of that money. So he's got to set a few things right. But again, I think happier times for Chelsea fans than United fans right now, just watching the games, not the eventual scorelines, because Man United have escaped quite a few times. Okay, we've done the Premier League. Anything you want to say about it before we move to the Bundesliga?
No, it's great that it's still there, isn't it? With 2 teams vying for it, and it'll be interesting. I think the game in hand for Man City is Fulham away. So let's see how they get on. If they win that, then they're nailed on. I'm sure for the title.
Incidentally, against Wolves, they scored 5 goals. But what you will love, Mark, Wolves had only 2 shots in the entire match. Only 2 shots, and those aren't on target. I think it was just 1 on target, which was the goal, and that's 2 shots in the whole game. So,
and if you look at the possession stats as well, you're looking at Manchester City 80%, I think it was. So
they just killed it. Didn't give them the ball. It's like those, when elder kids play with younger kids and they don't give them the ball. And just
it's called men against boys. That's what it is.
Okay. I went back into my childhood when people used to do this to me. Okay, let's talk about the Bundesliga. First, we'll talk about Bayer Leverkusen. They deserve it. They deserve every bit of mention that they get wherever they get. 5-1 against Frankfurt, Mark. The one question I had was, they won the title. Will they be able to get to that level of, performance once they know they are champions? Frankfurt is a good team. Bayern struggled against them last week. I know Bayern won, but not in this manner. Frankfurt played well in this one also. They had quite a few chances. But 5-1 to Xabi Alonso's men. Something, the voodoo magic that we said was working against Liverpool 2-3 weeks back, it seems like is working perfectly for Leverkusen.
It's not voodoo, mate. It's just ability, confidence, tactics, everything he seems to do. He played Andrich in a back three. He was a midfielder. He left Tar out, I think it was, and the other centre half in Capier. He left them to, obviously, they got bigger fish to fry in terms of the Europa League.
Yeah.
So no matter what he does, the players come in and they perform. Granit Xhaka probably had his worst game of the season in terms of giving the ball away, but he scored the first goal. He got them on the way. They're just a breath of fresh air, and this is on the back end of Xabi Alonso being in the stands. He wasn't allowed on the touchline, so I watched the game and I'm just in awe. Whoever comes on, is going to be a threat. Whoever goes off, and there's no. Is such a word as disharmony. There's the harmony within the football.
Then that Liverpool reference comes in even better, because there was a time Liverpool was like that, and Jurgen Klopp was doing that. He would literally pick a guy from the stands and put him for Liverpool, and the guy would score a goal. So that's saying something. That's giving a very big compliment to Leverkusen.
And you've got to look at Eintracht Frankfurt, a sixth in the league. So they're
not a bad team.
Yeah, so they're just steamrolling over anyone that comes in front of them, and I think the next game is at the Europa. Was Roma. It Roma at home? So
they've already beaten them 2-0.
Yeah, so they've got. They can draw the game, of course. They won't go out to draw the game. They'll go out and play. And you asked me a question about Leverkusen. How will they go about the game against Roma? And I was saying, will Xabi Alonso change his system
to change his tactics?
No, he doesn't. He just goes out and says, and this is what Liverpool used to do. I remember Ronnie Moran used to say, "You don't worry about the opposition. Let them worry about us. We'll still do because we believe in what we're doing." And he's got that at Leverkusen, and it's brilliant. I just hope that none of the players will go. Now, obviously, there's a few in there: Wirtz, Frimpong, in Capier. All of these players will be looking to Boniface, to move on. But if he can keep them, then there's no reason why he can't make.
I think with Leverkusen, the good part that has happened is that Xabi Alonso has said that I'm staying. So had he left, I think the chances of players wanting to leave would have been greater. He's staying. I know money is a big incentive. I know German football is not, and I know Bayer Leverkusen are not the highest paymasters. But I think Xabi Alonso staying back, I think some of these players will at least say, okay, I'll probably give you one more year, see what we can do in the Champions League. So, and the cool part, again, 5 different scorers this time. You mentioned Xhaka opening it, Schick, who's doing so well suddenly again in Germany, Palacios with a penalty, Frimpong and Boniface, their star striker. So 5 different scorers. And the breath of fresh air, Mark, that you're talking about, that's not been around since 1965, because they've equaled Benfica's record of unbeaten matches, and that was across seasons, December 1963 to Feb 1965. So that's 48 games now for Bayer Leverkusen.
And do you know what the beauty of that, what you're saying, that the goals are getting spread across the whole of the team? If you look at the Bundesliga top goal scorers, they're not in the top 5. Not one player at Bayer Leverkusen are in the top 5 of the Bundesliga's top scorers. They're around 7th and 8th, I think, Wirtz and Boniface. But it just shows you that you can have Harry Kane, who's going to be top of the league, but there's no other Bayern Munich player on that list of the top 10. But they're spreading the goals across the whole of the football pitch. And
it's a little bit like Dortmund in the Champions League. Top scorers like 3 goals. And they have like 4 players who've scored 2 goals, and that's why they're in the semi-final. Yep, well done to Leverkusen. We cannot stop complimenting them, and we should not stop complimenting them. But we don't want to make a podcast that is 2 hours long because we complimented them for 1.5 hours. So we'll talk about Bayern Munich against Stuttgart. We mentioned this match in the last podcast. We said it's number 2 versus number 3. I think Bayern were number 2 back then. And it's switched, the 6-pointer, as they talk about. And Stuttgart really really beat them, Mark. It wasn't a well fought, oh no, Bayern could have. It was a proper Stuttgart deserved to win.
Another game I watched, and yet you're right, it was Stuttgart deserved to win, the better team. I know Bayern Munich obviously have other things to concentrate on. I think they made 6 changes in this game, but if you're bringing Gnabry in as an exchange to one of your players, then you're doing all right. It was still a good team, but they were shocking. They were so bad, mate. They looked drained. They just look. I mean, and I don't want to keep harping on about Harry Kane, but it looks like he's shot his bolt now in terms of energy wise. He's only got 2 or 3 games to obviously get up for, but it was shocking to me to see a team like that go under so easily against the Stuttgart team. Stuttgart team are good, don't get me wrong, but right the way through the whole of the team, they looked abject. They looked tired, whether their minds were on something else. But, that's not the Bayern Munich side I've seen over the last few years.
Yeah, there's something wrong. There's something wrong over there. And also, Mark, we have to come in here because Ralf Rangnick, who was being spoken about as the next manager of Bayern Munich, has said no to them now. Bayern fans were coming up with a petition saying we don't want Ralf Rangnick, and I don't know whether he said here's my answer to your petition, because he said I'm not coming to Bayern Munich. Xabi Alonso has said no to Bayern Munich. How is everyone saying no to Bayern Munich, Mark?
Well, I don't know. There's obviously, as you've just said, there's something not right at the club, whether it's within the board of directors or the CEO. There's something not right, because since they sacked Nagelsmann, who, by the way, was doing great. He was doing really well. They sacked him and brought Tuchel in. From then on in, it hasn't been right on the pitch, off the pitch. You've got players, I think there were 6 or 7 players that don't want to play for Tuchel. And one of them was your captain, Kimmich, and when you've got a situation like that at the football club, on the field, it's bad enough, but there's just something not quite right with Bayern Munich. And if Bayern Munich can't get a manager in, it's like Man United saying, we can't get anyone. No one wants to come. Everyone wants to go to Man United. They should do as a manager. It's the biggest club in the world, or one of them. And Bayern Munich aren't far behind now. How the hell they cannot get a guy to come in, whether they want too much control upstairs?
Yeah.
And what you've got to realize now is these guys, managers now, are multimillionaires. They're not going to be told. They don't have to take the job now. Whereas back in the day, you would have had to have taken it for finances and whatnot. But yeah, there's just something not right. And, if you look at the Bundesliga this year, you can tell there's something not right. Yeah. Now, obviously, the Champions, but the Champions League tells you a different story. But if they play like
the
that,
way they played, Madrid are going to smash them if that's how they play. I agree with you. Tuchel has said no also, by the way. Someone asked Tuchel and said, what are the chances of you staying back now because they're talking, everything is right. And he said, no, this decision was made a while back and I'm not going to be there next season. So it's Xabi Alonso, Ralf Rangnick, Thomas Tuchel. Everyone has said no to being manager. And Nagelsmann has said no to being manager of Bayern Munich next season. So, wow. Are you looking for a job as a manager, Mark? If you
I'd say no as well. Okay. I need the money.
Yeah, you'd probably go there and say, I want to sell Harry Kane. And they'd be like, okay, we need to get rid of this manager right now. Okay. So Bayern Munich, they played Madrid on Wednesday. Quickly, Dortmund scored 5 goals against Augsburg. They played Paris on Tuesday. And my worry is, Mark, they were great against PSG in the Champions League. They were great against Augsburg on the weekend. And knowing Dortmund's law of averages, they're going to get smashed by PSG on Tuesday.
No. You see, the difference this time around is that team that played against Augsburg, there was 10 changes from the game that played against PSG. So the logic mightn't quite work that way, because he's going to change. Even though Dortmund played really, really well, Mukuku, I think the striker, young boy, got 2 goals, and Royce got a goal, and they dominated, and it was a great performance. But 90% of them won't play in the game against PSG.
So a law of averages should come after the PSG game, you say, but knowing Dortmund, the graph, I just hope that doesn't happen, because we've seen that way too often with Borussia Dortmund, and I think all of us have a soft corner for Borussia Dortmund. They've always been the underdog in whichever match they've gone, and for years in the Bundesliga. So we just hope they can put up a performance against PSG. Okay, La Liga, Mark, as we hit the 30-minute mark on our show, we can just keep talking as always. First, we talk about Madrid, champions for the 36th time. They made a couple of changes in that team as well. They were playing Cadiz, which is a small team, but they still needed to get the job done. And 3 goals, none conceded. They've set up well for the Champions League.
They have. And again, they rested a few players, but Bellingham scored.
Came on,
So... yeah, it was a great result, and it's a great result going in to the next game, isn't it? 3-0 is I always say 2-0 is a really good result in terms of you've scored 2 goals, you've not conceded any. I didn't watch the game, but I'm sure they dominated in possession, and it was a good run out just to keep the players ticking over, if you like. And they're at home again. This was at home against Cadiz, so I can't wait for this game in midweek, because the atmosphere is going to be fantastic. Again, against a team that have just been beaten at the weekend and played.
And they come in as champions again, like PSG did last week. They come in as champions.
But Bayern Munich, the way I want to see how. I mean, it'll be an interesting thing, this, for psychology for footballers, how they can go from the game against Stuttgart in terms of level of performance to the game against Real Madrid, because they need to raise it another 50% to get anywhere near Real Madrid.
Yeah, and it's Real Madrid in the Champions League. So it's not even a team in the Bundesliga where they have this aura, because it's Bayern Munich who has the aura in the Bundesliga, and they couldn't do it against Stuttgart. And then we move to Girona versus Barcelona. A game we mentioned in our last podcast, Mark, and I pointed out that the last time these two teams met, which was at Barcelona, Girona beat them 4-2, and I don't think too many people predicted that it would be the same scoreline this time around. Barcelona led twice in that game, and then again, it's the number 2 versus number 3, the same story as Stuttgart versus Bayern, and again, it seemed like the home team just outplayed Barcelona.
I didn't watch the game, but if you look at the scoring, Barcelona have got issues, haven't they? It's one of them. The manager's going to leave, or is he going to stay? I don't know.
I think he's staying. Yeah,
he's staying. So
unless Bayern Munich come in,
they've had to deal with all of that, haven't they? The players, but it's like 2 games to go, isn't it? In the season, they're not going to win. La Liga. They're out of the Champions League. It's just a case of trying to get through these games as best as you can. But when you've got a team like Girona, who are like the little team in the group or in the league, who've got a point to prove, they're the worst types of games for you as a Barcelona player, to go and play against a team that's firing on all cylinders and want to win. And you could just see that with the results. But having said all of that, Arpit, Girona have been up there,
they're second,
and they've been there for a reason, because they've got a good little squad with them. And, they do have a tie-up with Man City. They do have good players coming in from Man City and elsewhere. So, it wasn't a surprise, because, as you said, they've done it before, haven't they?
Yep, they have done it before. They've done it again. I'm going to throw out this statistic for you. Barcelona have conceded 43 goals this season. 2 teams have conceded 43 goals as well in La Liga. Las Palmas, which is 14th. Oh, wow, I got this effect. Let's not do that. And Rayo Vallecano, which is 16th in the league. They both have conceded 43 goals. And there are 8 clubs that have conceded lesser goals than Barcelona in La Liga. So there's something definitely wrong, because when we talk about teams doing well and being, towards the top, we always compliment the defense. That whole old adage saying, goals win you matches and defense wins you titles. But Barcelona have to fix this, don't they?
Well, obviously, I mean, my thoughts are on football. Defensively, you have to be sound. And if you have a player who can score goals, you're doing really, really well. But if you look at the top teams in the Premier League, Arsenal, I think 28 goals they've conceded. If you look at Leverkusen, 23 goals or 24 goals they've conceded.
Madrid, 22.
So all the teams that, it's not necessarily the amount of goals they've scored, albeit they have scored a lot of goals. It's the fact that they don't give goals away. And you now look at Barcelona in terms of next year. Where's all the money going to go? They need they'll obviously need a striker. Where's the money? They need to get defenders in. Now, do you go out and get £100 million defender? No, you can go out and get a £25 million defender, and he can do a decent job for you. You don't have to be stars defensively. You just need to be able to do your job, win your tackles, win your headers, be aware of people's runs and stuff. And it doesn't have to be a big investment for that.
Yeah, they definitely have to do something. Losing twice to Girona, even though you spoke about that Man City tie-up, and there are some allegations in terms of financial fair play or something with Girona as well.
Really?
but this, I mean, it's not like Barcelona don't have money and haven't done their own thing, getting in players without having money for it. But yeah, on the pitch that day, Girona beat them 4-2, and yeah, Barcelona's goal difference has taken a hit as well. Okay, Mark, we've gone through all the games that we wanted to talk about. Do you want to say anything? Oh, yeah, wait. I want predictions from you. 3 matches still to come. One is coming tonight, which is United playing Crystal Palace. I half thought the match was last night at 12:30 and went off to sleep saying I don't want to watch it. But I still have a chance of watching it. So, Crystal Palace versus Man United. Your prediction for this one?
3-1 Palace.
Not surprised. Tuesday night, PSG versus Dortmund. And who goes through?
PSG go through. PSG 3-1. 3-1.
Okay. The Mbappe show, the final match for Mbappe at the Parc des Princes. And Real Madrid versus Bayern Munich.
Having watched Bayern Munich at the weekend and knowing that 70% of them players will play in the game against Real Madrid, I can't see Real Madrid getting beat. So that means that Bayern Munich are going to win 2-1. No.
Okay.
I think Real Madrid will win 2 or 3. 2 or 3, no.
Okay, so Crystal Palace, Real Madrid, and PSG are your predictions. Cool. That's about it, Mark. So any final words before I close this out?
No, all good. Another brilliant weekend of football, high quality. And as we said, that when people get criticised, eventually these top-class players, they come to the fore. Haaland's done it again at the weekend. So when these people start criticising, like me, criticising your Harry Kanes, and they eventually come back to haunt you, don't they? So it's... and
I'm sure a few people have done it for Mbappe over the past week as well. So maybe it's his time to shine. We'll find out, of course, Tuesday and Wednesday night in the Champions League. Mark, thank you so much for joining me. As always, a pleasure. As always, we've had to literally restrict ourselves. Otherwise, we could keep going and make this a 2-3 hour long podcast, which we anyway do on the phone. Thank you all for watching if you have. And we'll see you next time on episode 12. Bye-bye.